everyone, this is Meg reviewing for videogamesblogger.com, and today I'm going to be talking about Chris's chapter of Resident Evil 6. Chris Redfield is back and reporting for duty for the BSAA, and this time he's carrying an awful lot of baggage on top of that muscle mass. Though Leon's chapter had heart in the form of Helena Harper's subplot and the Leon-Ada dynamic, the emotional aspect of Chris's segment makes for a compelling story. Like the mind often does to cope with traumatic events, Chris too has blanked out most of the events concerning the loss of his old team. He's angry, lost, and it makes you wonder if returning to active duty is a wise idea. Whereas Leon follows leads, Chris's emotions are the driving force behind his actions in this chapter, despite what the BSAA mission might be. And I suppose you would have to add a little more drama to the narrative, considering that without it, you'd just be left with another plotless shooter. So what Chris's chapter lacks in in-game variation, it tries to make up for in the narrative. Dramatic moments could be a little hokey at times, then again they were trying to fit a lot of drama in a short space of time. And to be fair, I don't play Capcom games for dead seriousness, I play to be entertained. It was incredibly cool seeing events from another perspective here. I also liked seeing how the metaphorical torch is passed to other characters near the end of each chapter. However, there were a few little inconsistencies concerning crossovers. For example, when tracking Ada Wong in Leon's chapter, Chris and Piers nab the elevator before you have the chance to go up, so you take the stairs instead. In Chris's chapter, Leon and Helena nab the elevator first, leaving Chris to take the stairs. I could have been seeing things, but if not, it remains to be seen if there is an interesting reason behind this. I liked the story. The crossovers were well worth the wait. The chapter was dripping in emotion and tension, and the characters moved in intriguing directions, and it ended in a way I really hoped it wouldn't, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't see it coming. All in all, I was entertained. In the same way that Leon's chapter was a throwback to Resident Evil 4, it was clear from the very first stage that Chris's chapter was representative of Resident Evil 5's overall playstyle, mixed with a little bit of Resistance Fall of Man and peppered with Uncharted. Guns are blazing. Your well-armed self is up against waves upon waves of equally well-armed enemies in chaotic skirmishes set to a backdrop of military jargon bandied about on the radio. There is no real balancing of elements in this segment because there's only one aim of the game: kill everything. It's not particularly inspiring, but it's hard to fault how well it plays, unless of course you're talking about the cover system, which was pretty rubbish. And Chris is a lot heavier and therefore a little different to maneuver, similar to the variety of characters in Heavy Rain. I like it when games do this. It would be strange to play vastly different characters and have them move in exactly the same way. To me that's a bit of a cheat. This can make running cumbersome though, but what he lacks in dexterity he makes up for in strength, allowing for more powerful melee attacks and the ability to carry out more heavy-duty weaponry, such as the grenade launcher, 909, and semi-auto sniper rifle, all in a day's work for Chris Redfield. Scarce health herb and item drops without the upgrade were noticeably more challenging in this chapter, as was the restriction on item capacity. These were challenges I feel the gameplay needed though, because without it, it could get a little stale over time. Emblems were hidden throughout Chris's chapter too, but you find yourself not really looking for them, and taking the nature of this segment into account and the lack of exploration that was seen in Leon's chapter, they really feel out of place here. Like Leon's chapter though, the AI has vastly improved. The only real variety in play comes in the form of a car chase and jet combat, both of which acted as a nice breather from the bog-standard shooting gallery. There were also a few timed sections which amped already tense combat situations up. And whereas the survivors in Leon's chapter had no hope at all and may as well have red crosses painted on their foreheads, Chris and the BSAA squad spend a lot of time successfully rescuing most stragglers from the fallout in this chapter, which made for a cool switch and something different to do. This is the one chapter where I feel shorter, i.e. not a full game, was better. They used the time they had as wisely as they could, all things considered, to offer a burst of high-octane, if a little uninspired gameplay. But this is the kind of experience I was expecting from Chris's chapter, so I didn't leave feeling over or underwhelmed. It delivers a Resident Evil 5-esque experience, no more, no less, and if that's your style, I guarantee you will walk away happy. The visuals are very much the same in caliber as in the previous chapter. Textures, environments, weather sims, etc. were all top-notch. This chapter, however, was wildly different in feel. The menu layouts and icons, for example, changed to a more high-tech militant aesthetic in Chris's chapter. This worked well as it fit the representation of a new character and playstyle. And since the menu controls were the same as before, there really wasn't anything to adapt to either. I forgot to mention this in my review of Leon's chapter, but watching people mutate into these creatures is particularly impressive. The use of truly grotesque sound effects and effective motion capture help, but the visuals really sell the gag, and I couldn't help but really notice it here. The array of monster designs were uniquely interesting here too. From camouflaged snake creatures to giant ogres and cricket zombies, it makes perfect sense that mutations would vary over different locations in the world, and it clearly gave the devs a lot of creative leeway. The character models are a little less shiny than the previous chapter. Instead, Chris, Piers, and other characters appear grittier, grubbier, and edgier, which works for this roughed up, non-stop shooter segment. They're a lot more emotive in the face too. Chris alone says much more with his facial expressions than any other character thus far, except maybe Sherry Birkin. There are quite a few environments here, but they do tend to feel a bit samey after a while. Most locations are dark and rusty and take place in hangars and ship hulls, that sort of thing, with the odd exception here and there, most notably being the icy streets of Europe. But it just doesn't hold up to Leon's chapter in this area, and sadly there are double the amount of invisible walls here, which leave you feeling caged in and really drives home the fact that you just can't explore as much here, which is not a good look for an already limited shooter. Music is there from the very beginning of Chris's chapter. You hit the ground running, unlike Leon's segment, which results in a consistently heavier score. The beats are more intense, the drums are louder, the symphonic overtones are grander, and there are far more ambient tracks to sink your teeth into, as the monsters in this segment are generally beefier. But since there were a number of emotionally powered scenes in this chapter, the orchestral score really had a chance to explore a more melodic style. I can honestly say it succeeds on this front, and effectively backs the dramatic moments. These interludes also made for a refreshing change from the relentless beats of action, and deepened the overall feeling. So the musical score covers all of the unremitting action, and adds atmosphere to large-scale battles, but it also has a chance to explore a more emotional side at several points in the story, like tragedy in Europe, the scuffle between Chris and Piers, and the end teaser theme. I would say that the music is present in Chris's chapter, unlike the previous, which only really came to the forefront in the latter half. But there are a lot of tracks in Chris's segment that warranted repeated listens, which is much better and much more impacting. This chapter delivered a Resident Evil 5 style experience, which shouldn't be a surprise considering that Chris Redfield is the central protagonist here. This does mean, however, that you're getting a straight up shooter, with heavy combat scenarios, boss battles, and big guns. It plays hard and fast with little variation here and there, though not enough in my opinion. But if you like this sort of thing, you will thoroughly enjoy Chris's chapter. I did too, and that's saying something considering this isn't my favourite playstyle. But it really doesn't offer anything new. It gives you the tried and tested shooting gallery formula, but it does it fairly well. Overall though, this chapter still leaves me pretty excited to see what we're going to get in Jake and Ada's chapter, which can't be a bad thing. So thank you for watching. Please feel free to leave your own comments and opinions on Chris's chapter in the comment section below. I'll see you next time. Bye!